Right, we're back. Sorry about those technical difficulties. The rain, the weather, and goodness knows what else has combined to make things a little difficult for us this afternoon, and therefore for you. But here we are with our big bull giraffe now feeding on another Albizia forbesii, or large fruited false thorn. Now he's been hanging around here for quite some time actually. Probably about a week I've seen him hanging around here. He doesn't appear to have any friends. Maybe he's a particularly offensive giraffe, I don't know. But the bulls would be expected to be on their own, unless they were in company with a potential mate. Now, I don't think he's in the most robust condition he's ever been in. If you look down towards his hips there, Owen, they're sticking out a bit. And I noticed very clearly that he was limping. I think his right front shoulder is not in a great way. I learned something interesting yesterday as well, and that is that if we look down his rather shapely leggies, there is some fascia around those bones you're looking at there. Tight fascia, like those aeroplane socks, that stops the blood pooling in their feet, because obviously this entire animal needs to be designed such that blood can still flow around without gathering in one place, namely in their toes. And so it's got this very tight bit of fascia that is wrapped around those bottom parts of the leg, and those are the metacarpals actually. Jane, you're a new viewer and you say you love giraffe. Well, how convenient. Here we are with a giraffe, and a magnificent giraffe no less. And I especially enjoy the sighting because of the different shades of green that are surrounding our giraffe, and he's allowing us a really nice close look at him. He's not terrified and running away from us, which I find is always an advantage when you're looking at animals in the wild. Alice, what a great question, possibly one I should have anticipated and answered before you had to ask it. It's called a false thorn because it looks like an acacia, or looks like what used to be called acacias. So it looks like one of those, I don't know what to call them anymore. It looks like a thorn tree. It looks like a typical umbrella-topped thorn tree. Maybe it doesn't to you, but a lot of them do. They've got the same kind of double compound leaves, but they just don't have any thorns. And if you're wondering why I said we don't have any acacias anymore, it's a little known fact that the Australians, who also have or had acacia trees, got together, or the dendrologists got together and decided that the acacias of southern Africa and Africa were not closely related enough to the acacias of Australia for them both to be acacias. And somehow the Australians got the name acacia, and we here in Africa did not. And so all of our acacias are no longer acacias at all. They're either Senegalias, the ones with the small hooked thorns, or Vachilias, the ones with the long white thorns. This is a great injustice in the world of dendrology, if such a thing can occur. This is a travesty that the Australians have got acacia trees. One just doesn't associate Australia with acacia trees, does one? I mean, by all means, if we found a kangaroo here, we'd call it something else, but I mean, to call it Australian trees acacias is just ridiculous. The other thing that Australia doesn't have is Impala, but a Trishada does have those.
All I heard is Trishula and Australia and possibly Impala. At least Trishala and Impala do rhyme. So we have a group of boys here, 4 rams, and they're just starting to get a little bit annoyed with each other as their testosterone levels build up for the second coming of the rut. That usually happens around May, and males will start to get an increase in testosterone as a result of day length change as we transition from our rainy seasons. Already we're in autumn, but as day lengths start to get shorter and even more shorter, it triggers a testosterone release in these animals. And that's when they start to become a little bit more aggressive with each other as they fight for some females. And you'll also find that they will knock horns, and they'll start to scent mark all over the place, especially with their heads. They rub their foreheads up against a bush and start thrashing it, kind of like a boxing bag. And that's why we stopped at these guys, because they were fighting. We thought it would be a nice experience for you guys to see it. Now, when they fight, they clash their horns together, which is quite a striking sound. But they're more interested in something that's in the bush. If you see a building out in the background, that's just the gate. We decided to take a different route today. We don't normally come on this road. This road is called Triple M. It's one of the main roads. And it's a bit bumpy, but it is also very productive in a sense of tracks and seeing what exits and enters the property. Now, I was on this side hoping that the two leopards that we could find in this edge were about. This one is Shudulu and the other one is Hukumuri. I really, really like Hukumuri very much. He's quite special. He has an injured eye, and he is rough and tough, quite stocky. Elias, you'd like to know if impalas have a matriarch or patriarch or an alpha pair or anything like that. No, they don't. Everyone breeds. Generally, when we speak about that kind of thing, it's talking about mating rights, because that's so important in biology and in the life of creatures, because without mating, we don't really have any life. So it's super important. I remember my biology teacher said to me, the meaning of life is make more of me. And these types of animals, they live in gregarious, large herds, and they're usually all together, except for portions when the males are feeling territorial. That's usually around rutting time. Let's have a closer look here. And for that portion of time, they'll become territorial, and then the territory is fairly small. And they will chase away any other males in that area, and then they will mate with any female that manages to get into their territory, or at least try to. And once they've mated with that female, they'll not mate with her again. They'll try their hardest to mate with others. So there's no kind of strict system. Oh, you have got a lot of oxpeckers hanging about on you. Get away. Shake it off. So there's no real much structure when it comes to an impala herd. Everyone is just trying to eat as much as they can, mate as much as they can, and survive as much as they can, because they get taken so often. Now, Rowan at andBeyond Ngala is still with those wonderful lions. Now, they don't usually take antelope, but they can take something bigger. So let's go back to them.
Poor little impala to be covered with 6 oxpeckers. I'll be honest, it's I think these lions could use with a few oxpeckers to clean the ticks off them. I was watching this lioness now in front of us, who has her head up but her eyes closed. She's got an enormous tick just below her left eye. Hopefully she turns her head towards us. You see, she sniffed something in the wind. Turn towards us.
Actually, every single lion here has a lot of ticks. Of course, you won't find oxpeckers on lions because lions are predators, and their reactions are just so quick that they'll be able to catch and eat an oxpecker. Not that it would prove to be much of a meal, maybe more of a choking hazard, but no oxpeckers around these lions at all. It's been very entertaining to watch the flies irritate the older male white lion. He has actually gotten very aggressive with a few of them, chomping up into the air, trying to catch them with his paw. I've just been watching that for the last little while. This lioness has woken up and she's just looking around. We had some Impala's alarm calling again behind us, so it might be them moving through that she sees, but she doesn't look very interested. And the rest of the prize is still sleeping quite sound. Now you can probably see the tick in her eye. Okay, no, she's moved away again. See the flick of the ear to shoo away flies. There we go. That is enormous. It's a very impressive tick. We got a lovely question from Anna, who's 6 years old in the UK. Anna, they usually have 2 to 4 cubs. We had a lioness here who had 5 cubs a couple of years ago, which was absolutely extraordinary. So lionesses, they only have 4 nipples as to which the cubs can suckle from. But this particular lioness, also part of the Birmingham Pride, but not part of this pride, part of the Birmingham Breakaway Pride, has 5 nipples. Very interesting to see. I remember literally all of us were quite shocked. I can hear the young male snoring again. Slow snores every now and then. Lou has asked me if the 5th one is in the middle. It's actually, I think it's above the left 2. I haven't photographed it in quite some time. If we do see them, I'll try to take a photo for you, Lou, and I will send you that photo of the 5th nipple. Glad you guys can actually hear him snoring every now and then. It's quite cute. I think he's happy to be back in the pride again. No Rasmus here to kick him out. So he's just sleeping fantastically as a protection of his older sisters and of course his mother and her sister. Marcel and I were talking a little bit earlier about the male white lion, the older cub, and we were just saying that he is going to grow up to be huge. Lovely to see him stand up every now and then. I mean, at the age of 1.5 years, he's already massive. So cannot wait for him to grow up. I think it's mostly to do with his mother's genes. They are also absolutely enormous. But for now, while he's trying to bite and shoo away flies, so you can see his ears turning this way now, still trying to catch that fly. We're going to send you back to Djuma and back to James.
This is an interesting bird. It is the bronze-winged courser. And the bronze-winged courser is a nocturnal bird. And so to find it like this is rather nice, because normally we just see them on the road in the evenings. And what I'm going to do is very softly play you the call, because it is the most bizarre call. I don't want him to react to it, so I'm just going to turn it down a bit. You can hear it as a sort of start of a trance song, I suppose. Club anthem. Ding, 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 ding. Ding, 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 ding. Here we go. We did it. We made a club anthem. Thank you, Mr. Corsa. He did not vaguely react. Now, we're always a little bit careful when we play calls like that, because you can cause the birds a bit of distress. If they suddenly think that what they considered an unoccupied territory has an intruder, they can get a bit upset. But he didn't react at all to that, which was great. Now, he's called a courser because he runs after things and catches them. And to that end, like all the lapwings, he only has 3 toes on each foot. So not 1 on one foot and 2 on the other. He has 3 on each. And the absence of the back toe makes him much more mobile on foot. It's a little bit like us, really. We don't have a digit facing backwards. Yes, great stuff, Bryce. You're 14 and saying you're starting to compile a bird list and you'd like us to keep a lookout for birds. Certainly we will. Absolutely. A great idea, Bryce. You got some nice ones today. That Steerling's wren warbler was a good one. They're not that rare, they're just difficult to see. Even more difficult to put on camera. Okay, I think we've milked this particular sighting as much as we can. No, Louis DeLion, I will not be rapping my presentation to that song next time. I'm not much of a rapper, really. I know that will surprise many of you. You will all be gobsmacked to hear that somebody of my appearance and age and accent is not actually a rabid rapper, freestyler. I know you'll be just amazed you, but actually I'm not. Now, Trishala is a much better rapper than I, because A, she is younger, and B, she is much hipper. I don't think people say that anymore, do they?
I'm very hip, James. I'm hip and happening. I wish I could rap, though, and tell you a rap about this vulture, but alas, I have nothing. But what I do have, Bryce, is another bird for your bird list. I'm so glad that you're composing one. It's so important to have one, and it's also really nice to look back on. And you see all the different types of birds that you have. So this one is called a white-backed vulture. And they're probably the most commonly found ones here. We also get the hooded vulture, that's fairly common. Lappet-faced, not as common, but you may also see them. I think it's a really pretty scene. The dead trees with the vultures on it. I know it sounds or kind of looks a little ominous with the clouds in the background and the vultures sitting on dead trees. But they sit out on dead trees out of necessity. They are large birds, about 5 kgs or so for this vulture, and tall as well, about 90 centimeters. So when they push out their wings, it's over 2 meters in wingspan, and to get out of a tree that's full of leaves and branches can be difficult with such a large wingspan. So it's important that they're on dead trees, even though in some areas of the world people may believe that they are somehow associated with witchcraft and other negative connotations cast upon them. But in fact, they're doing the necessary things that they need in order to survive and what is most comfortable. It's just like, I think of it like taking off your jacket because it constricts your arms. Or rather wearing a loose shirt. It's going to choose a looser tree without any leaves and things like that stopping its wings. Cooper, you are all the way in London. And you'd like to know, well, how old? Just England. How old can a vulture get to? Well, these ones, the oldest record is at least 13 years old. So, just a little older than you. Very, very interesting creatures. Of course, we know that they're scavengers. And they can sometimes even get, hopefully we'll be able to show you a carcass with lions on a buffalo or something like that, because that's when you see a whole lot of vultures all over. And you can see just how brave they are, because lions will get irritated with them, roar at them, swat at them, and things like that. And they just keep bouncing back. But occasionally, they can be killed by lions. But they have a defense against things like that, which is a very interesting defense. Just turn that game drive radio off for a moment. It's a very interesting defense. They can actually throw up their stomach acids on themselves. And as you can imagine, that's not particularly tasty to any lion or anything else out there once you've done that. And that's something they can do fairly easily and as a defense mechanism, which is... Yeah, it's a very odd one, but very, very effective, as I'm sure you can imagine. So our stomach acids sit about a pH of about 1 to 2, which is pretty acidic. The pH scale is 7 is neutral. Everything below that is pretty much acidic. And lower it goes, the more acidic it is, and higher it goes, the more basic it is, up from 7. And a vulture's stomach acid is even lower than that. We're talking around 0 to 1, which is very, very, very acidic. And that's how it's able to digest all of that meat and etc. Anyway, this vulture seems to be hanging around and is not too interested in a carcass or anything special like that. I think it just likes this home. So we'll send you back over to Rowan at his home with those lions.
My lions are indeed still hanging around. I'm actually, to be honest, having a very nice and lazy afternoon just sitting here with the lions. Every now and then the sun pops out, heats us up a little bit, and then goes back behind the cloud. Got a request from Bryce that he's doing a birding list, and there currently are no birds around us, which is not abnormal or weird because we are sitting with a pride of lions. However, Bryce, I'll tell you that when joining andBeyond, part of our training was also birding, and we had to do a birding assessment, and what this includes is we go through 50 pictures of birds, which we have to identify, 50 calls of birds, and then within a day we have to go out into the field and identify 100 birds. And because James had the bronze-wing courser earlier, it reminded me of our exam when we were listening to all the calls. And I remember me and Ranger Barney, we studied together, and the bronze-wing courser actually had one of the funniest calls. And I remember when this call played on the computer, both me and Barney just looked at each other and started giggling, and we both knew the answer. So luckily both of us passed that assessment as well. Beautiful day. Lou had an idea and said we should maybe just glue some wings to the lion. So far I'm actually very comfortable sitting right here, being for self-preservation, but I'll try. Marcel, are you keen to go glue? He's thinking about it. He's definitely stroking his beard at the moment. There's a lot of contemplation going on in this vehicle today, I can tell you that much. So yeah, lions still being very lazy. Every now and then they'll flop over. One of the large lionesses there in the back, she's now lying on her back, just trying to cool down a little bit. It's funny, every now and then there's a fly that goes and lands on her chest, and she might rub her chest. It's like rubbing your belly when you lie on your back. Otherwise, not too much movement just yet. Luckily it's quite a cool afternoon, and I think looks like there's a bank of clouds on the horizon, so the sun is probably going to go behind the clouds rather soon. Should cool things down, so I am hoping that they might just wake up a little bit earlier today. All my fingers are crossed. Even trying to cross my toe now, that's not happening. So we got a question from Crazy Legs asking whether the Birmingham boys would carry the white genes because they came from this pride. Crazy Legs, very likely. The Birmingham boys, their mother actually gave birth to the younger lioness there, and because her mother and her sister, very, very likely that the genes is carried on throughout this whole pride now. So all you need is a lioness that carries. I'll just focus in, sorry, on this. She's rolled around and she gives us a nice little glance every now and then. Beautiful eyes. Yeah, so actually, yeah, very likely that they do have the white gene, but they'll need a lioness with the same gene in order to produce a white lion. The bar? Maybe, wait. Yeah, pull that tick out of your eye. No? So George, there are, what I've read, sorry, I'm just going to reverse a little bit. Apparently, this lioness's eye is a slight bit behind the pole. There you go, Marcel, is that better? Okay, well, now she's standing up. I've read quite a bit on this, and the usual thing, what people said is that lionesses are more attracted to male lions with black manes, and black mane lions tend to be more aggressive, so they usually do quite a lot better with the lionesses. All I can say is it remains to be seen. We'll just have to see if this male or the male in Singita, if he grows up, I have to see what happens. I can tell you that I've seen this little white lion in a carcass, and he is super aggressive. He's also huge for his age. So I can't give you a clear answer on that. The things I've read would suggest so, but in my opinion, it just remains to be seen. You can see the young male also now using the other cub as his pillow. Just see the tip of the nose still a little bit pink, pointing over. The tiny white lioness is using him as a scratching post. Okay, so it seems that James has found a pair of birds that is actually andBeyond's logo. Bryce, if you can guess what that is, you can fill that in on your sheet for your bird list. Beautiful birds. Sending you back to James with those on Djuma.
They are magnificent birds, and they're certainly one of my favourite raptor species. They are, of course, Pteranthropus echodatus, the Bateleur. Owen, are you on a work go slow today, or are we just doing a slow zoom for effect? Slow zoom for effect? Go slow. We're on a go slow. Okay, fair enough. These are tough times. There, he's back. That is the female, Mrs. Bateleur, That is her husband, Mr. Bateleur. And they, of course, are sitting here because there's a nest quite close by. I don't know if they've successfully managed to hatch a chick or not this year, but there is a nest quite close by. Quite an ominous picture that, isn't it? With the clouds in the background. It's rather appealing, I think. And these are mostly scavengers, but they seem to do quite a lot of sitting as well. I think their energy balance is relatively low because they are gliders. They don't spend a great deal of time flapping. And so they're quite often sitting over here. Now, I've just had a comment from Louise, who is the director today. She's sitting in the final control room, and she says that they give her the impression of Batman surveying the city of Gotham. Louise, I'm willing to bet that you are the only person in the world who's ever thought that. Now people will be unable to think it, or unable to unthink it, but I'm pretty sure you're the only one. What's really nice about the male on the right there is the fact that the wings, you can see the outer wing coverts extend. In fact, those are the primaries, I think. They extend beyond the tail. And that, of course, is because the tail is so very short on the Bateleur. A magnificent bird. In the background, a Swainson's spurfowl, and then a rattling cisticola. That's an absolutely appalling rendition of a rattling cisticola. And if you found these chaps in company with a tawny eagle, you'd probably think to yourself there was death nearby. But because they're here together, and I'm pretty sure they're here because of the nest, I shall not assume that there is death nearby. Louise now says that all of you, in other words, all of the viewers, think that she is correct, and they do look like Batman surveying the city of Gotham. I think that's ridiculous. They are the most regal of the raptors, I think. More so even than the magnificent martial eagle. I mentioned yesterday, and for a few days before that, while we've been enjoying all these elephant sightings, I said that, they can just suddenly disappear. And that seems to be the case. I'm hoping there are a few left here on Djuma, but all of the tracks I've seen this afternoon have been heading out somewhere else. Where to? Who knows? Oh, Trishala has got a very, very interesting bird, I think.
I do have a very, very interesting bird. It is a lovely woodpecker. Now you can see that's slightly spotty on the top, on the wings at the top, and the breast. Hello, let me see your breast. Look barred to you there, Darby? Or spotty? It looks more barred. So we have 4 types of woodpecker that we get here. We get the bearded Bennett's cardinal and golden-tailed woodpecker. And the golden-tailed has streaks on the underside. The cardinal has streaks on the underside. And The Bennett's has spots on the underside and bars on the top, but the bearded woodpecker has bars on the breast. So we're going to say this is a bearded woodpecker. Oh, there's a nice one here. Oh yes, there's also spots on the front. If you look at the red one, that's got the red head. There's spots on that too. So, Bryce, another one to add to your list is the bearded woodpecker. How cool is that? Now, the one with the red cap on its head is the female. The male. And the one that has black on their head without the red, that is the female. So, male with red cap, female with black cap. Cool is that? Now you can see that it's knocking its head. Kind of looks like a hammer. Knocking that very sturdy beak with the use of its head, because it wraps its tongue muscle around its head for support and strength as it knocks out the outer bark to try and get to any insect larvae that's living underneath. You might even see bits of bark falling to the ground. I want you to listen. Goes knocking about. Well, it's knocking fairly hard, and the bearded woodpecker also has a drill that it does. Oh, we still got a bird overview there. And it can do a territorial drum that's very, very loud. And that's because it's quite a large woodpecker. Oh, how beautiful was that? Hi, Sassy Cassie. You'd like to know, do any woodpeckers actually chip off parts of their beak from tapping too hard? I'm sure that does happen. I can't say that I've read that does happen, but it seems like a likely problem. Oh, there goes a piece. It does seem like a likely problem, but also remember that they have a very pointed beak, and it's very sturdy. So they have developed to allow this kind of drumming. So though occasional chips might happen, I think that it is less damaging than we might think. I think it might just be a little bit here and there, and possibly for an older individual that has maybe weaker keratin on that beak. I find it so interesting that they just knock and knock like that. It seems so jarring, like they would hurt themselves, but they're so strong. And you can see that from the movement. Oh, Darby, well done. Everyone says you have some excellent camera work. He says, thank you, very enthusiastically. So this is the perfect tree for them. They usually look for slightly dead trees where the outer bark is easily pulled off across and down. Hi, HH. You'd like to know what tree this is? It is an old marula. And you can see by the bark, actually, if you look at the trunk, then you'll see that it kind of looks like somebody took a whole lot of golf balls and just hit it at the tree. Or ice cream scoops was taken out of the tree. They're fairly easy to recognize. It has. So you see there's lots and lots of holes all along it, which would indicate that there have been some larvae insect larvae drilling its way in and creeping in, which is exactly what these woodpeckers are after. So they've chosen an excellent tree to forage along. They especially like the larvae and pupae of beetles. Hi, Callan. You'd like to know if there's a kind of shock absorber in their head to help them with all this drilling? Yes, there is. There's a muscle wrapped around their actual brain cavity. So they'll be able to knock, and that acts as a shock absorber. And it's actually an extension of their tongue. Now, they have a barbed, very long tongue, and it's obviously a very important adaptation for them. Because after they bang through the outer bark and get into where the larvae would be, they need to lick it up. Oh, how nice is this view? I now see 3 on the tree. This is obviously a great tree, as you saw with the pits in it. A loud one. I hope you could have heard that one. This one's... I wonder if we'll be able to get... I was just about to say, I hope you can see its tongue as it gets in. Did it get something? Oh, that's awesome. It's so interesting to watch them go. Working hard. Oh, this is amazing. So we've got 2 males and 1 female. Somewhere around here. She's at the back somewhere. Sugar bits, you'd like to know, well, how do they know where to peck on the tree? It is a bit of chance, but also they will go or prefer dead trees where the bark is loose and animals or insects are more likely to have burrowed in. And then they'll probe. They'll constantly probe, go around. As you can see, they're flying from branch to branch and probing. They give the spot that they're in a good probe before they move on, though. And they look for a weak spot. Oh, very nice. I'm so glad that you can hear it. And you can see that they don't go for the large trunk part of the tree. They're going for the branches rather, where the outer bark is slightly thinner. I have seen them on trunks before, but it's obviously easier up there in those branches. Oh, just wonderful. Yes, you can actually see the tail kind of propping down to actually help balance them. They've also got special feet, zygodactylus feet, that make sure that they can hold on just like that and not feel like they're going to fall off. It's also really interesting to listen as they peck along at different parts of the tree and the sound that it makes. And I wonder if they can detect certain bits that are more hollow than others just by that sound. If humans can, by tapping a wall, I can't see why woodpeckers wouldn't be able to. So busy. This is obviously a great tree, because 3 of them all hanging out in this tree. We can see that it's got the little pits in it, and they're flying from branch to branch. I bet there's a lot of beetle larvae in there. That's their preference, of course. Oh, well, this was just wonderful. I'm so glad that we could share it with you, and that, Bryce, you get another bird for your list, as well as anyone else who's keeping a bird list. All right, let me send you back over to andBeyond's Ngala and Rowan while we keep on cruising the northern firebreak.
I've actually never seen a woodpecker pull a grub out of a tree, so that is super interesting, Trishala. Very, very, very cool. So one of the older lionesses now got up, and she's actually cleaning her own baby. As you can see, licking her back, and the little white lioness, she's lifted her head, and often what happens is she'll start cleaning her, well, like she's doing now, cleaning her own mother, and then it's going to get to a stage where she's actually tired of being bathed, and she might start snarling at her or showing her teeth. So any of you who's ever been licked by a cat, you can times that by about 50 to compare it to the roughness of a lion's tongue. I can imagine it feels quite good. There's the other lioness also waking up now. Right, so this is the time. This is exactly what we've been waiting for. There she comes. Her head's up. She might just shake her head, stand up, stretch, and also walk towards us. Big yawn there. Look at those teeth. Enormous. Definitely don't want to be... Oh, there we go. The little white lioness has started snarling at her mum, and she's busy biting her. Yeah. Oh, angry. Well, teeth look good there. Lou says someone needs to go see the oral hygienist. Lou, I agree. I'm still on your side with whatever you say this afternoon. There we go. Beautiful look from the lioness that's closest to us. Those ticks just look horrific, though. You need to pull those out. Marcel? Okay, so good to see some movement, finally. A big yawn from all of them, actually. Lou, I'll be honest, the young male, the sub-adult, his teeth still look very good. You know, it's quite amazing. The older lionesses, the one that you saw yawning earlier, there's a bit of anger coming from the little white lioness there. They really do stand their ground. Size does not matter to them. They'll still go for whatever. Okay, so this female's up. That female's yawning. She'll probably get up soon. So we're going to see which direction they head, if they do end up going. Lou says size matters to lions about the same as it does to a Jack Russell. That is also true. No fear. Absolutely no fear. We've seen them at carcasses, and these cubs put up such a fight. It is amazing. So while they look cute and cuddly here, they are still very, very dangerous and wild animals, even these youngsters. Pretty sure I would lose a hand, if not my arm, trying to pick one of those up. It's quite funny seeing them all rolling in different directions. The tawny cub with the younger sub-adult male asking for clean, and the young male is obliging. How cute is that paw on the head? Oof. Big, strong male, this. Really hope to see him grow up to adulthood. It is time. It's amazing how they go from sleeping and about 2 minutes later, basically all of them are awake. Still no stir from the other white lion though. The younger male, he's still being very lazy. He's not even looking at the rest of the pride. So all the lionesses are going in there for a grooming session. Clean me, please. Trying to scratch his head. See how happy he looks when he gets a scratch. So Joy has asked an interesting question about how long has andBeyond Ngala known and followed this pride. So Joy, the two lionesses in the back are over 14 years old. They're 14 plus. So I know for a fact that andBeyond has known and followed this pride for longer than 14 years. It could be, though, because they're known as the Birmingham Pride, that the Natal Pride actually came from a neighbouring property called Birmingham. But it's very possible that they've known about this pride and followed this pride for longer than that even. I can't give you a true answer for that. I've only known and followed this pride for just over 6 years now. There's a very nice grooming session going on in the back there. The one lioness receiving more love than the other two, having two of her, well, one of her offspring and her sister cleaning her. Oh, in the ear, cleaning them very well. They need to come lick the little white lions a little bit. They need a good cleaning. Marcel offered to take a hose pipe and a scrubbing brush to them a little bit earlier, at which, of course, I said that would not be a good idea. We need a cameraman for tomorrow's morning game drive.
I'm pretty sure if you give him some catnip, you can do it.
Rather not. I'm not going to repeat that. See, the white lioness now also started cleaning herself because no one is cleaning her. Just spotted something in the grass there. Okay, let's see where you go, big boy. Time for more snooze. Right on the bum of the younger white lion. So Adrian has asked where in the world is the third of the three wild white lions. Adrian, not too far away, actually at Singita Lebombo. I think, if I'm correct, that male was born of the Shishangan pride. Should be 4 or just over 4 years old now. So actually a little bit larger than the male that you just saw stand up and then plonk himself down at one of the other three wild white lions in the world. So yeah, not too far from here, a little bit further east at Singita Lebombo. Okay, she's up. Let's see if she comes towards us. Maybe time to clean one of her cubs. Oh, no, just getting into a better position. Okay, so while we wait for all of them to get up and get moving, I'll send you back to James and Djuma. He's got another bird of prey.
We have got a bird of prey. This is the Wahlberg's eagly. And this particular Wahlberg's eagly is interesting because I think it's the youngster that was born this last year. And if you look carefully, you can see a bit of white downy feather sticking out of his right underarm. And he's a bit mottled and he's a little bit scruffy, and that is typical of young birds. His parents are a couple of Wahlberg's eagles that come and nest here every year and have done for many years. One of them is a pale form and one of them is a rich dark chocolate brown, and he's sort of somewhere in between, or she. I've got no idea what that funny bit of down feather is, or why it's there. Looks like he's tucked something under his arm. And he's obviously also going to experience his first migration fairly soon. Yes, Louise, it does look like his handbag, I must say. Also looks like he's standing on one foot, which of course birds do sometimes, to reduce the area of exposure, or the skins, the area of skin exposed, should I say, to the atmosphere. Yanks, I feel like I should know the answer to this question, but I'm not sure that I do. A very good one. Why are some female birds of prey bigger than the males? this is a good example of that species, that happening in a species. So the female Wahlberg's eagle is bigger than the male. Yanks, I don't know for sure. I think it may have something to do with their having to carry an egg. May make a difference. I think you probably find it more in monogamous birds than you would in birds that are more of a tournament species where males have to compete with each other. Once a pair of Wahlberg's eagles or most other eagles is paired off, that's it until one dies, and so there's no mating competition, so there's no real usefulness to the male getting big. There's no selective pressure for the males to be big. Yeah, I don't know. It's probably a combination of those things. I feel that's a very unsatisfactory answer for you, though, so I'm sorry about that. Nina, you're wondering where the name Wahlbergs came from. Wahlberg was a Swedish naturalist of the 19th century, if I'm not mistaken, and he did what they called in those days collecting a whole lot of animals. Now that sounds very innocuous and very sweet, but what it meant was that he came to Africa and basically trapped, hunted, shot, and then stuffed a whole lot of animals and then took them home. And after, he's got a few animals out here named after him, including the Wahlberg's epauletted fruit bat. What else? There are quite a few. Let me just think carefully to my brain. I think there's a fruit fly too, actually. Yeah, so he was... I'm just trying to remember how he died. Yes, I was remembering. I was correct. I've just checked it up. He was killed in Botswana by an elephant, which, while that sounds like a beastly death, and I'm sure it wasn't a comfortable death, when you're going out and collecting like he did, it's probably not that surprising. So there's a Wahlberg's cormorant, a bush squeaker, the Wahlberg's eagle, and the Wahlberg's epauletted fruit bat that I know of. And there he goes. So poor old Gustav Wahlberg was flattened by an elephant near Maun in Botswana. We're going back to the hyena den. You're going over to Trish, who's got a terrifying thing.
It is a terrifying thing, everyone. I wonder if you can guess what it is. I'll give you 5 seconds. 1, 2. Davy has revealed it. But it still might not be typically what you expect from a spider, but it is the nest of a community nest spider. So that is a web that is pulled together into this ball, along with other leaves and sticks and other stuff that it would be able to find nearby, and they pull it together to make this nest. Now, community nest spiders are one of very few species of spiders that can actually socialize and live together. And that's quite strange for spiders, because spiders often have a reputation of being solitary hunters that just go crazy on anything that comes along and are not tolerant of other spiders. But in the case of these social spiders, which are only a handful amongst the different species of spiders, it's quite unique, and it's also really, really cool in the way in which they divide their labor and who does what, which is usually, if you're looking at a hierarchy in insects or any other kind of arthropod, usually we talk about ants, bees, or or termites, that's usually determined genetically or by the introduction of feeding them a certain thing. For example, with ants, they transfer saliva to be able to feed hormones to certain individuals to create different castes. And with bees, they feed royal jelly to potential queens, etc. There seems to be some kind of predisposition in their actual behavior, which is very, very cool, because it literally is something that is just their personality. Somebody's personality seems to be more appropriate for taking care. One's personality is a little bit more aggressive. And by doing that, by sorting out which personality is which, you can actually increase its survival, because the ones that are taken care of by those spiders who are more warm and nurturing, they're more likely to survive, so the species survives better. If you get the ones who are going to collect food or defend the nest, those are the type that may not do so well with the youngsters. So it all works to increase their survival. I think it's really awesome. Now, obviously, none of them are out at this time. Bird City, you say, wow, you've never heard anything like or seen anything like that? It's quite interesting, isn't it? I love the fact that firstly, the web looks like nothing else I've ever seen in terms of spiders. And secondly, it's unfortunate that I didn't get to show you them actually working on it, because they're actually quite large. You expect it to be pretty small, but they're, I'd say, what do you call this, section of the tip of my finger. So they're actually quite large. And they will go out and work really busily, and they never seem to be aggressive towards each other. And I think that's really amazing. And scientists have actually found a way to determine whether a spiderling, which is a little spider, can be or is nurturing or aggressive by placing a known aggressive individual in a tank with other spiders. If the other spiders retreat to corners and stay there, then they're regarded as docile and will therefore be the nurturing type. And if there are other aggressive individuals, they will fight. It's not like one aggressive individual will pull back and not engage. Very, very interesting little critters, I think. Davi, we have a fantastic shot of the moon there. Hopefully we'll be able to get it. I'm just going to position. So quick look here. Oops, sorry. Harsh stop. Isn't that just beautiful? It really, really is. All right. Well, that means it's going to get dark pretty soon. And while we prepare for that, we'll send you back over to Rowan and those lions who are probably starting to get up and move.
You can see majority of the adults are now staring in one direction, and it all happened very quickly. Not too sure what ran through there, but it must have been just a sound in the grass there somewhere that caught their attention. One lioness looked up and quickly turned in that direction, and the rest of them just followed suit. No question asked, just complete trust that there was something that was bothering her. Actually quite a cool view from this side. You just see the black tips of the ears down all of them. There goes one. I wonder, maybe there's something there that they could hunt. Because the way she's walking, I mean, there doesn't seem to be any form of danger at all. Maybe she's just a bit more interested. Now you could see when they woke up and they're actually moving, they don't look thin at all, but it doesn't look like they fed last night. So it could be quite a good night to hunt. There's no wind, but luckily we do have cloud cover, so it's going to be rather dark tonight. Should be quite good. Hopefully they do end up catching something and feed themselves. And we could find that for you in the morning when Sean takes over. Oh, no, I think she wants to be cleaned. She might just plonk herself down right in front of that other lioness. a bit more grooming coming your way. That's, oh no, okay. No cleaning that one. Big stretch. So, not yet. I know a few of you want to know if they are potentially hunting right now. So not yet, just the way they are moving. You can see their ears are actually propped up, just listening. When they do hunt, they'll go into stalking mode, which is basically a leopard crawl. You'll see they sink themselves down very low to the ground. The tail will go down and the ears will face backwards, trying not to let whatever their prey species might be see the back of the ears, the black. So in here, out in the wild, the two colors that stick out the most are actually black and white. An interesting talk about that yesterday with a man called Richard Sowry. He's a section ranger of this part, and he was saying how a bright white sheet is much easier to see out in the bush than a bright yellow sheet would be, or a bright orange sheet for that matter. So they're not hunting yet, but they are listening out. I think they're almost choosing a direction which they might move in. All three lionesses now heading there. Just for interest's sake, that would be northwest, the direction in which they're facing. Which is good news for us. It means they are walking away from the eastern boundary and actually into the andBeyond Ngala property. Dennis, welcome. First of all, nice to have you on the show. Dennis asked, how far are we away from these lions? Dennis, I'm going to work in meters here, and if I had to estimate, the closest lion to me is probably maybe 10, 11 meters. So not too close. We don't want to disturb them too much, so I did not want to drive up too close to any of these lions. Saying that, though, maybe later on, when they are on the move, we will park in such a way which often they'll walk right past us, very close to the vehicle. It's usually at that stage where we will hold our breath and just watch in suspense. See the two youngsters in the back also waking up slowly now, often licking each other, licking themselves, also playing with each other every now and then. Now there's a little branch that the one keeps hitting down. Looks like a little piece of a guarri tree. It flops over every now and then. There we go. Play with your sibling again. Look how he's trying to draw him closer with his paw. So Joy has asked a very interesting question, and I was actually waiting for this to come. Would the white lions participate in hunts, or would they stick out too much? So Joy, no doubt about it that the white of the lion is actually going to make it a little bit tougher for them. Now, in wintertime, it actually might be a little bit better because the grass is paler. And I don't know if you can see, but this little white lioness, she's quite dirty and muddy. So she blends in a little bit more with the grass now. As you can imagine, summer, all of this is green. But then luckily what happens is the grass is a lot higher. So for sure, they are going to participate in hunts, as lions do. But yeah, camouflaging themselves would be a bit more tricky than it would be for a tawny lion. Funny enough, this young male here, the sub-adult male, I watched him. No, actually, I was sitting with another ranger called Andre one morning, and we watched the pride trying to hunt Impala. And it was absolutely amazing to see all the lionesses haunched down very low, getting closer, literally leopard crawling, using every single bush as cover, using the long grass. And even his sister was very successfully keeping up with the rest of the lionesses. Meanwhile, he woke up late and looked around, couldn't really figure out what the lionesses were looking at. So he stood up tall, stretched, and he would keep his head up as high as he possibly could to see what the lionesses were hunting. And he completely destroyed their opportunity. But one of the lionesses managed to catch up with an impala a little bit later on, and it was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. She hit it with one paw, and this impala must have rolled at least 4 times. I'll have to ask Andre the details. And then got up and ran away. So the male lion completely blew the whole hunting expedition. But yeah, there's a big yawn from him. Let's see if he actually gets up and you can see his actual size. Okay, so while we wait for these lions to get a little bit active, I'm going to send you to James, who has an incredible view of an ear of hyena and lots of flies.
Oh, she stuck her head up. Can you believe it? Don't get too excited, everybody. She's going to put her head down very shortly, and then all we'll see is a few flies, a bit of blood, and a twitch or two from the ear. There we go. Gosh, this den has been something of a disappointment over the last 3 or 4 days. Most of the time with this clan, when you come to their den, they reveal their babies very quickly. It's either that her babies are very, very small, too small to come out, or they're very, very shy. And I don't suppose that whatever fight she had last night is going to make them any more confiding. Anyway, we're going to give her until it gets dark, because those cubs must come out at some stage. They must eventually make an emergence. Can you even... yeah, there's just an ear there. Just one mangled ear. I'm disappointed it's that ear too, because that was the ear that I used to identify her quickly, because it's got a very distinctive notch. Makes her ear look like a B. A B. Anyway, you know, it's not really up to her to entertain us, is it? That's not really what she was born to do. Dee Stevenson, who says she's been doing mom stuff and says she's allowed to be tired. I don't think that's why she's tired at all. I think she's tired because she's injured. I think she had a very unpleasant night last night. And as leader of the clan, the Mafia Doness, I don't know what the female of Don is, it's definitely not Doness, she has probably had a fairly violent time of it over the last 24 hours or so, and so I think that's why she's tired. I don't think mothering has necessarily got her down, unless her children have mangled her ear like that, but I doubt it. No, we haven't, Megan. We've only seen the cubs once, and that wasn't today. So we haven't seen them off camera or on camera, around the camera, but for that one time when there was so little that their ears were still floppy. So, I mean, that was what, 4 or 5 days ago? 5 days ago now. 6 days ago, maybe. And since then, there's been nada. She's been here, consistently looking after this hole. We've heard them squeaking and making a noise. Many of you are concerned about this fight that we think she's been in. I don't think you should be concerned. This is part of a hyena's life. This is how they are. This is how she must be if she wants to maintain her position at the top of the clan. But she certainly, I mean, she doesn't seem to be in great discomfort, but she's definitely tired. And I mean, she came in late. She wasn't here the whole of the morning drive. Zephyr, it's certainly possible that Corky tried to take back her matriarchy. For those of you who don't know, this hyena clan has recently experienced a matriarchal takeover. And Corky, who was the matriarch, was deposed by Ribbon, who had hitherto been a fairly low-ranking member of the clan. She'd had enough and took the matriarchy by force. Now that will inevitably mean instability in the clan for a while she establishes herself. But I mean, this took place, what? 6 months ago? No, not quite 6 months ago. It was during I think November.
Your birthday, James.
Was it around my birthday? Yeah. So November-ish time, November, December, January, February. Yeah, 5 months, certainly. And so you'd have expected that, you know, if there was going to be some other takeover, it would have happened by now. But maybe things have just been settled, and 3rd of November, there we go. Maybe things are just so unsettled that, you know, it's never really become particularly stable. Maybe the ranking is just too similar within the clan. Could have been another clan, could have been a lion, but I think it looks like an injury inflicted by another hyena. Taylor, it really does depend on the individual den and where it is. So I've driven a little rover into a den before. I knew it wasn't occupied, so don't worry about that. And it was there were 2 chambers, and they were probably, I'd say, 1.5 meters from the entrance. So not very deep. I don't know how deep this one is. No, look at that. There's a sigh and some breathing. Good news. Flies are still hanging around. When I was recently in the Kalahari on my honeymoon, there were a lot of flies in all the camps we stayed at, which was a little disturbing given that there were no other people there. And my new wife was constantly heard to ask, what time do the flies go to sleep? In fact, I think she asked it on 12 of the 14 nights that we were there. And my answer was universally, as soon as it gets dark. And so Ribbon will be most pleased to hear that the flies sitting on her ear, drinking her blood, will be going to bed sometime in the near future. We're going to wait here for, well, until it gets dark, but you're going to go up to Ngala now and get a much better view of a hyena and some lions.
So we had a bunch of impalas run straight through those clearings. Where my sights focus now, there's just a hyena, one spot hyena, there he goes, out in the open. That's really not seen the lions just yet. I'm actually quite surprised because usually hyenas are quite curious by nature and they usually come investigate what we would be looking at. So I'm waiting to see if he actually comes our way. But with all the impalas running in a different direction, no, he seems to be walking away. Okay, well, majority of the lions are watching him. One of the females, she's up. But it seems the hyena has now disappeared behind the bush for us. Let's see, it's good. It's always a question that we get, that when we drive up to the lions, why doesn't the sound of the vehicle bother them? And it just doesn't. It just happens with habituation, that we've done it so many times before, spent so much hours with these animals, that they are actually quite used to our voices, and then also the sound of the vehicle and how close we get, and we've just never posed any threat to them at all. However, any natural sound in the bush, like impalas trampling through grass, or even one of us walking in the bush, crushing a stick, maybe cracking a branch or something like that, gets their attention. And it was actually quite amazing to watch. We couldn't hear the impala, of course, and we were actually facing the other way, looking at the lions, when all of them just jumped up and looked to the left, the way the young male is facing now. And it's that which alerted us to the impalas running through the clearing. It could be that the impalas actually saw the hyena from afar and ran away. Not that hyena would hunt a herd of impalas by himself like that. They do better in clans. But yeah, so it is getting quite dark, and we'll possibly be able to spend another 7 or so minutes here. So we'll play it by ear, see if these lions do get up and move. Otherwise, it seems that they are rather lazy. Maybe they moved very far last night, just off our eastern boundary, and then back again. But I must say, it's very nice to have the Birmingham Pride back on andBeyond Ngala. Of course, the larger the cubs get, the more they tend to move around. So Emanuela has asked if lions have the same sleeping habits as domestic cats. Emanuela, I've never owned a domestic cat. I know my sister Tanya, she has one. And let me actually think about it for a while. Maybe, probably. I think domestic cats actually sleep less than lions do. Tend to be a little bit more active, whereas lions, I think it's also because they are the apex predators out here in the wild, that they tend to sleep more, because they are there's no worries in the world for these bunch of lions. You see one of the lionesses now lifting her head. There's a bit of a breeze that picked up from behind us, and it's almost sending a scent in the direction of the lions. So you could see how she lifted her nose into the wind there. Very interesting question. I'd actually go back and read up about whether lions have the same sleeping patterns as domestic cats. See her lifting her head again, just sniffing the air. Might give us a big yawn. There we go. Alrighty. So Hazel's asked a question, are white lions usually larger than tawny ones? Hazel, no. In my experience, it's all that color really does not have anything to do with size here. Size has to do with the genes and the size of the mother and the father, rather than the color. It might seem, from a human perspective, if we look at them, because they are white and they stand out a little bit more, they might seem bigger. But I think weight-wise, if you have to go and you weigh a white lion, a fully grown male white lion, and you weigh his brother from the same litter, same mother, same father, they'll probably be exactly the same. Maybe, a few kilograms here or there, but size-wise, I think the same. Big yawn from the young Sabarot male. Isn't that just African, like classic African photo, him yawning up into the air like that and exposing those huge teeth. So just before it gets a little bit too dark, we're going to sit with them probably for another 5 minutes, see what happens. But as it gets darker, we're going to leave them. We don't want to shine the spotlight on the very small youngsters yet. They are not yet a year old. But for now, we're going to send you back to James, who's still with Hyena at Djuma.
How's that? I'm just trying to get a slightly better picture of the hyena. She's climbed out of the hole. She looks very stiff. I couldn't see any obvious wounds on her, but she does look sore. And something's caught her attention behind us. And I also cannot see what that is. It might be another hyena. She might just be listening, perhaps, to a sound. The one sound that has been completely absent during the course of the afternoon has been elephants. We've had 4 days of exceptional elephant sightings, and now they're gone again. Could be back tomorrow, could be back in a week. Very unpredictable. Yes, quite often, Susie. It depends on the rank of the hyena, though. This is not a huge clan. There are only about 15 individuals in it, at last count. And so it's not that typical. But what would normally happen is that a low-ranking hyena might give birth at another den, and then when her cubs were a little bit older, say a few months, she'd bring them to what we call the central den, which would normally be where the matriarch had her cubs. But I don't know if any of the other females in the clan are pregnant, and if they were quite high-ranking, then they would give birth here. Late in 2018 we had a lot of cubs with the clan, and so a lot of the mothers really are not, they're not likely to be pregnant. Paige, it's a good question as to why females run the clan of the hyenas. They're not the only society in mammals where that happens. There are quite a few primate species. Bonobos are a good example, and if I'm not mistaken, there are a couple of cetaceans as well. It's a list of about 5 or 6 different mammals where the females are noticeably larger than the males, and they tend to dominate socially. Obviously mammals have adopted a number of strategies and social makeups to survive, and they have their advantages and disadvantages in different situations, but the fact that they're all here with us right now means that they're sufficiently advantageous for those species to have continued. In the case of the hyenas, it is useful for the females to dominate because the males really don't play much of a role. They don't play any role in fathering or in fatherhood, so they don't feed the youngsters, they don't look after them at all. And so the purpose of a male is basically as a sperm donor, one, and as a territorial marker, but they don't really protect the territory. And so it makes huge sense for this female to be bigger than the males because it means she can dominate food. And for a mother that's lactating, being able to dominate food is really clever because it means that males can't come and take food that could be turned into milk or fed to the youngsters, and so the females take advantage from being larger in the hyena society, and that has been sufficiently advantageous in the species at large for it to be perpetuated. But it's unusual in mammals because it's quite tricky to not maintain but to design, and hyenas are a wonderful example of that again. They've got this ambiguous genitalia, so a female gives birth through the urogenital tract. She's got this fake penis, and it makes birth very difficult for her, very traumatic for the cubs, especially if they're the first litter, and they often don't survive. And so in order to have a female that's bigger than a male, there are obviously a lot of traditionally male hormones or analogous hormones to male hormones. So in the case of hyenas, it's a hormone called androstenedione, I think, and it has very similar effects on the body that testosterone does, but obviously she doesn't have testicles, so she can't produce testosterone, certainly not a lot of it, and that's what makes her bigger. But that's quite a trick to have evolved that particular physiology in order to make her bigger, in order to make her have these male characteristics without her being a male. So, in rather a long-winded way, I'm saying that it's certainly advantageous for hyenas, but it's not necessarily the only strategy for them to have evolved. It's just what they have evolved, and their particular way of doing it is successful for this particular species. Make sense? I hope so. I hope it wasn't long-winded and totally confusing. Trishala is currently looking for her favorite little nocturnal reptile.
I am currently looking for my favorite. It is, of course, a chameleon. And they would be lying in the trees somewhere at this point. And this is a tree that we're familiar with. It's quite close to the camp. But I don't see our friend. Maybe he noticed that he was getting too much attention. Instead, though, there's some wildebeest. Hi, guys. All right, we need to go to infrared to show you the wildebeest in 3, 2, 1. Infrared. There we go. Hello, friends. Quarantine is a very nice place, as we've explained before. For the animals at night, you'll find they're like a sea of impala and wildebeest. I must say they are stretching quite close into our actual camp, which is not totally unusual, but that's something they usually do if there is a predator on the edges of quarantine. But I've just done a loop around quarantine, so perhaps they're just on their way down towards the dam camp, and I've caught them. Eating along. Can you imagine in this darkness a predator could be lurking amongst the grass? There's no wind, no breeze to carry its scent. But the eyes of these wildebeest, as they're down and grabbing onto the grass and eating happily, their eyes are still very aware of what's going on. They have horizontal pupils, so their slits are horizontal, since rectangular actually, and as they push their head down, their eyeballs actually roll up into their inside of their sockets, so that they are lined up with the horizon always, even when their heads are down. Apart from that, they have a large field of view, as do most prey species, which means that at all times they can be hyper aware of any movement. Apart from that, they do have the tapetum lucidum. That's that reflective layer in their eyes that you can you do see with the infrared light as well. And that allows light a second chance to bounce into the eye. So it bounces in and then back, and we're seeing the shine of the light bouncing back, and then a second chance to bounce back in onto the retina. So 2 shots at seeing the same image, and access to two chances of light, which is obviously great in this kind of darkness. Now at this point, they would have totally swapped from using cones to mostly using their rods, which perceive light and dark better than cones do. Cones perceive color very well. So they would have changed. Yes, I'm so glad that you guys have noticed how ghostly they can look, especially in the infrared camera. Impalas as well, by the way. I hope I don't look too ghostly. As you would notice, I don't have a tapetum lucidum, which is interesting. We are one of the few that tend not to. Again, that stems from the fact that we have adjusted so well to not being out at night and sleeping at night. But how awesome would that be if we did? Alright guys, I'm taking my spotlight out again, and hopefully we'll be able to find one of those tiny cute reptilian things that I love. But somebody else has also got their spotlight out, and that's Rowan at andBeyond's Ngala, so let's go back over to him.
Righty, so the night drive has started. You can see my spotlight is already out. We've had to leave the line, sadly, so we don't shine the spotlight on the younger two youngsters, on the tawny one and the little white one, the two sisters. Just because they are still under a year old, and we don't want to expose them to the spotlight just yet. So what we've decided to do, myself and I, is to take the long road home. Actually, maybe trying to see whether we could maybe find a chameleon, maybe a leopard even would be quite fun. So fingers crossed, as we drive around, I shine the spotlight, Marcel behind the camera, we could, between the two of us, find something. Every now and then you might see me swap arms. It is quite rough on the shoulder to shine the spotlight around like that. So typically I'm just checking every single bush for any sign of chameleon. They tend to shine just a little bit brighter than the rest of the leaves. Probably something you get used to after a couple of months at least in the bush. So I did actually think that I'll challenge Trishala to see who's finding a chameleon first, but I'm afraid I might lose. Not that I have faith, or I don't have faith in my own ability, it's just that I do not think I'm driving the right roads to find a chameleon. Just find any excuse I can look for. But let's see, go. There is about maybe 10 minutes left or so I'm going to try my best. Trishala, challenge on. Let me know if you accept. Let's see who can find a chameleon first. Although I must say, if I find a leopard, it trumps a chameleon. Alright, James has also joined the challenge. So I'll admit that it's 2 from Djuma versus 1 at Ngala. So the odds aren't really, they're stacked against me a little bit, but it's okay. Let's find either a chameleon or a leopard. Okay, Liu rates that it's every man for himself. Don't know what the winner gets yet, but we shall see. No. False alarm. I actually really just got very excited. Some lichen on the branches, which is a bit of algae. Also shines bright on the branches and a little bit white, so very easily confused for a chameleon from my point of view. Marcel, are you also looking? Yeah. Okay, good. At least Marcel is on my side. Elani has commented that she thinks the spotlight should be attached to my head. I agree. I actually think that is a beautiful idea. Let's see if we can come up with something for that. Although I do think, Elani, that would make me look rather funny. Then I can't turn and talk to you guys because I'll blind all of you. Mind you, I could probably drive around with a head torch, but we need something a little bit brighter than a head torch. So Matthew, that's a very good question. We are specifically looking for flap-necked chameleon, and their usual color would be lime green. Rather, I mean, if you look at this tree here, the color of the leaves are actually more of an olive green. So you can imagine that, Marcel just told me that it is in black and white because the infrared camera is on. But the lime green will actually catch the spotlight a bit more than the olive green leaves around it. I think it most probably would be harder to find a chameleon in a silver cluster leaf tree, which has lighter leaves, than it would be in some of these guarri bushes and combreatums that we are driving past now. Okay, so this next road we're going to the left and heading towards the river. This should be good vegetation, quite thick. What we're going to do is send you back over to James, who's now my competitor, also frantically looking for chameleon.
Yes, I'm frantic. I'm absolutely frantically searching. Look at me, frantically searching for a chameleon. My sense of franticness is becoming overwhelming. My heart rate has soared to about 240 beats per minute. My adrenal glands are pumping out epinephrine. My nerve endings are pumping out norepinephrine. The blood is rushing away from non-essential parts of my body, like the digestive system, and rushing to my muscles. I'm having an enormous anxiety attack at the competitive nature of my frantic chameleon search right now. My sympathetic nervous system is in overdrive. Heart rate, as I say, through the roof, lungs heaving in and out, blood rushing to the muscles of my legs, for it is the same response that I would have were I faced with a terrifying predator. Yes, Louise, my legs have muscles, albeit they very small muscles, but they are still muscles nevertheless, and my sympathetic nervous system, experiencing this tremendous stress response, is supplying them with oxygenated blood. I won't be able to continue in this state for much longer, this state of extreme stress. Glucocorticoids are now starting to be secreted in my brain. The hormones of healing in anticipation of injury are starting to be provided to various parts of my body. Rose, you say I am a drama queen. Rose, you do not understand the stress of a frantic chameleon search in the evening. How can you possibly say that I am being a drama queen? I will need a paper bag soon so that I may desaturate my oxygenated blood. Trishala is also having an anxiety attack as she frantically searches for a chameleon. Good luck, Trishala.
Ah, my heart, as I look for this chameleon. Woo! I know exactly how James is feeling. I know it may not look it because we're driving so slowly, but we've got to look it carefully. Unfortunately, my standard chameleon that is usually around camp is no longer there. Not sure what I think of that. Anger comes to mind. What did she say? We can hear from? I can't hear you, Louise. I'm concentrating. I'm anxious. Oh. Okay. Come on, guys. Cheer me on here. I need some cheering. Yes, that's exactly what I need, Louise, is a time cap. I said I need some cheering, and she says you have 2 minutes. Let's do this. I shall give you a monologue on chameleons while I look. I think I can see James's lights. That's not going to be helpful. So James spoke to you about how you can spot them in the trees and how amazing it makes you look. But in fact, it's actually not that difficult. So they are diurnal and they hang about in trees. Louise is telling me I've got 90 seconds. They hang out in trees and they tend to get a little bit pale when they're in these trees, which is very helpful when you have a spotlight, and it is very obvious when you see them. I have a feeling James and I are on the same road. Thank you, Louise. She's trying to cheer me on while also telling me about our time. If you didn't know, guys, I love finding chameleons, and if I go out on a mission to find them and I don't, it is pretty upsetting. Pretty upsetting. Okay, I need to move faster than this. It's so obvious that at this speed I will be able to see too, especially in these bushy trees. Vroom vroom! We're gonna find a chameleon, everyone! Okay, I have 20 seconds and I don't have a chameleon for you. Okay, you're gonna have to finish on my face, everyone. Thank you for your questions and your comments. We'll see you in the morning for Sunrise Safari.